Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle. Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. I am not going to dilly down tonight because, number one, I'm very excited to have our guests on. And number two, one of our guests has a time crunch, so we're just going to get this thing started. We bring Dewey on real quick. Dewey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing well. I hope everybody else is doing well. I'm going to say hi to a few people in the chat real quick, and then we're going to get this thing underway.
Guess what I was doing.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to type while I'm doing this, so I got to say hi physically. Henry, Felicia, Brian, and Chewy. By the way, Brian, Chewy, myself, and I believe Alex Petikoff are going back up to the Berkshires on Friday. So everybody, please stay tuned. I'm going to try to go live as much as possible. We're going to be there during the day, and then we're going to stay overnight on October Mountain. So please keep your eyes open for that. Sonia, hello, how are you, honey? Scott Gable, welcome. Ben, what's up, buddy? Sharon, Pyromedic, good to see you, pal. Catherine, Guy, hello. Hope, hi. Octopus with no friends. You need to change that name, man. You got some friends here. Kay, Miss Kay, how are you, dear? I think I got everybody so far. Felicia, Kathleen, how are you? All right, let's bring our guests in and get this thing started. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scot and Hannah Violette from Squatch America. How are you guys?
We're great. Hi, everybody.
All right, welcome. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
So, I want to get this thing started because I know Hannah only has a few minutes, and I want to get both of you, for as much time as I can. So, first of all, I find it really interesting that you guys, your backgrounds are really like, for this subject matter, I think they're perfect, right? So, Hannah, you are a master social worker, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then Scott, you study Native American anthropology?
Yes.
So, like, for me, obviously the anthropology thing fits this perfectly. The social work aspect for me is really great because, like, your whole thing is you study behaviors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that baffles us about this topic and these beings is that, their behaviors are so elusive and people report so many different types of behaviors. So how has each of your backgrounds helped you in this field and then collectively as a team?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, first of all, this has nothing to do with this, but Kyle, you win the prize for the creepiest opening ever. Outpeed myself. Okay.
I love that opening. I love it.
Oh my gosh. And did I see the ring girl in there? The ring was by far the worst. Oh my gosh. But that's another story. Anyway, so the study of behavior, particularly from like a clinical social work aspect, as a clinical social worker, I worked with populations of very vulnerable, very, I'll just say it, very disturbed people. And the people that I worked with as a social worker were pretty much stuck in survival mode, where their behavior was driven by, how do I put another meal on my table? How do I keep clothes on my kids? How do I keep us in a house? So really, really at the bottom of a developmental pyramid. Their behaviors, good, bad, or indifferent, were driven by a need to survive. And even if you look at that, your addict populations, they're driven by a need to survive. And for whatever reason, their behaviors are feeding that need to survive. And so if you look at Bigfoot, who, regardless of what you think Bigfoot is, if you put their behaviors in the context of, we are surviving, we have to survive, we have to stay safe, it kind of puts things into perspective, I think. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Did that sound intelligent?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. I was telling Barnaby Jones the other day, I said, sometimes I start talking and then I step back and go, I don't even know what I said there. So it just kind of,
we all do.
No, I think it's great. I think what you're saying is hits the nail on the head. I'm an addict. I'm a addict in recovery. And so
Yep.
I understand fully about what that does to you, and pushes you to that place where you are so desperate daily to have that thing, right? Number one, you need that thing, that whatever your
Yep.
drug of choice is, that's number one on your list. Someone described it to me, and this is the best way I ever heard it described, was like, as we evolved, we need certain things to survive, right? We need food, shelter, the ability to hunt, defend, and then to procreate. Those are the four top things on our list every day that your brain, your body, and the evolutionary process tells you that you need to survive by any means necessary. When an addict takes their drug of choice, all of those things go, and that drug becomes the number one key to survival every day. And so, like, that was the best way I've ever heard it put, and it totally makes sense, after going through it all. But the way that it relates to this is, like, I understand it completely. I don't know if it's as easy for other people to understand when they're living in a way that they have this need to stay hidden, this need to keep away from the population for safety's sake, and all these other things. But it's amazing. I have never heard anybody discuss it that way, but it really hits the nail on the head.
Well, if you think about it, for people, because I also have my own addictive issues that I contend with every day, and I think more people do than people realize, and more people do than a lot of addicts will never come out of the closet or even recognize it because they're addicted to things that are acceptable.
Sure.
Like sugar. There you go. Sugar, saying right here, sugar addict,
Me too.
But for people who honestly think they don't understand that, all we have to do is go back to the last few years, and how hard was it for most of us after being sequestered in our homes for 2 years to go back out and not stay hidden, because we all went into our caves, good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about the morality of that whole situation or whatever. But we all kind of went into our caves and stayed hidden, and it was sure hard to come out and be seen again.
Yep.
And because for 2 years being hidden was how we survived. So
yeah.
Anyway.
And you know what it did in that whole process too, excuse me, through the pandemic and being locked away, it really showed, if you took a look, it really showed just how destructive we are as a society on this planet. I mean, we were locked away. You started to see the animals start coming out in places and numbers you'd never seen before. You started seeing fog and smog clear up in areas where they were so prevalent. I mean, it's the things that we do. If I was them and I was watching from the outside to us, I would want to stay away too.
Yeah, people have often asked me, the first thing I say is when people say, well, why doesn't Bigfoot show himself? Why doesn't Bigfoot want to be seen? I just look at him and say, have you seen us?
Yeah.
Have you seen us?
Yeah. It's the truth.
What is humanity's history about interacting with things we don't understand?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I always thought about, in the study of anthropology and human evolution and stuff. A lot of Bigfooters talk about, the Gigantopithecus, but you never think about where it was found and when it was found. It was found on the edge of the Bering Strait in China, and it was 10,000 years ago. Well, where were we on the edge of the Bering Strait 10,000 years ago when the Ice Age happened and the land mass opened up and then humans migrated? Well, it was the same place, same time. So this creature, could have migrated with us. And you never think about this, but the first 4,000 years that we were on this continent, humans, we wiped out 4 species of animals.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the woolly mammoth, the small horses, the giant sloth. We wiped out 4 species of animals in the first 4,000 years we were here.
Well, there you
So
go.
if it migrated with us, it saw what we do, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not gotten any better. I mean,
No.
you know, we're now more well armed, you know, weapons wise. We do more damage in other ways now than we ever did. You know, just by the way we live and survive. But yeah, it's crazy. I want to talk real quick too, before you have to go. You guys travel full time. This is what you do. You go like to every conference you possibly can. You travel the United States. You go, you find spots on the map, the Bigfoot mapping project, the BFRO maps, reports, and you go to these places and you do your research. This is like a Bigfooter's dream, right? I mean, anybody who does this stuff, like this is a dream. How much fun is it really?
Oh.
Well, we have our days.
Well, let's see. So the dream part, like right now, we're sitting in the middle of a central Texas forest in autumn. Fantastic.
Awesome.
You can hear the Carolina wrens chirping every morning. There's lots of places to commune with nature. I became a total like a tree nymph during this time. You know, I can sit on a log and meditate. You know, we're waking up looking at the sunrise over Lake Tawakoni. It is a dream. Do you want to talk about the nightmare parts? Like the one we just had?
Yeah. Well, the nightmare part is we travel all the time. So we've got a 34-foot camper and our diesel truck, and have we broke down and the truck won't start in the middle of nowhere? Yep. You know, there's all this.
The slide breaks and we can't get the slide in or out on the trailer, so our house is broken.
Yeah. So, you know, it has its challenges, but overall, it's been a dream actually, really, for us too.
I think based on what we came out of, which was, you know, working 80 hours a week, we were both in the education industry at the time, and you know, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to be in my classroom by 7 and working 12, 16 hours a day, only, you know, yeah, I'd rather live in a box, which I kind of do. It's on wheels, but you know,
yeah.
And so
I don't blame you.
So the degree of independence, all that's challenging and sometimes scary, and sometimes we do have moments where we look at each other and question every decision we've ever made. I think that this is far and away more in alignment with who we are as people and what we want to experience in this life than before. Are we going to leave a great legacy for someone? Probably not, but you know, we're having the best experience ever.
Yeah, I'd like to, I don't know, I'd argue with that. I mean, I think that what you're doing, at least in this community, for people who know,
did he freeze up?
He does that occasionally.
Okay.
Hear me or not? Can you hear me?
You're
there
back.
You go.
He's back.
The signal goes in and out here sometimes. I apologize.
Yeah.
I think it does. It's going to leave a legacy because you are so dedicated to this topic and this subject matter in a way that most people aren't and can't be. I mean, this is literally your life, right? Like, and so what you're doing just in that is so like it's inspiring. Number one, like I look at it and go, man, I one day I hope I could do that, right? Even part-time, to be able to just travel half of the year or a quarter of the year and do that. So I think you're wrong. I think it's going to leave a legacy. I really do. I know, like, and I also, one of the things that drew me to your channel is when I was shown, somebody sent me a link, a friend of mine, And one of the things that drew me in immediately was the energy that you two have. Like, it's just so positive in this community, as well as I do. There is a ton of like infighting and ego and I'm better than you, I have this and I'm not going to share this with you, and that's not at all what I get when I watch your channel. I mean, the complete opposite of that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Before I have to go, I'll speak to that, and then I'm going to turn you guys over and you can do the guy thing.
Okay.
So if you put it back into context, especially in this field where everything is conjecture, everything is subjective, there is, we investigate the unexplained and it remains unexplained, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, people have a piece of the puzzle and it becomes a part of their identity and it becomes a part of their psychic survival. And when that, so if you think about it, there's a massive survival instinct in this community. And if someone takes away what I have, then I have nothing left. And so I have to guard it and I have to go on the offensive to keep people from attacking it. And I think that perhaps because of what we've been through in our lives and just our own mindset, is like, we love this. This is especially his passion, and he's my passion. So there we go. But if someone takes Bigfoot away from us, we're still here. It's
Sure.
still, it's not our entire identity. And so we have survived much more than an unethical TV crew.
Yeah.
So with that, I am going to say goodbye to everyone, and were we going to have him on our show?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you next time, Kyle. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wow. Yeah, that was a great way of putting it. Like psychic survival, it does. It becomes for a lot of people, it becomes their full identity. And when that happens, that's, I think, when you see a lot of that negative stuff pop up. It's sad in some ways because it's anything that you are overdoing or attaching that much importance to can become unhealthy, right?
Right.
Yeah, it can, and for some people, it's like all they have, and they become married to the subject. They become married to the possibilities of the subject. That's, I think, when you start to see, very questionable evidence, quote unquote, being shared as like real, true evidence. Like, oh, this is a Bigfoot for sure. When in essence, like what you're looking at is just kind of a blurry, innocuous, like stump possibly, but people want to believe so badly because they have so much vested in this that like it blurs the lines, man. It really does.
Right. Well, I think I come to it in a little bit different viewpoint because in my career, as an anthropologist, I worked on a lot of archaeological digs and stuff and different Native American cultural things. And in the academic world, to put it, I guess that's the way I put it, when we're doing archaeological digs and we're finding things, one of the things you do is you come up with your interpretation of what this means. What I did was pictographs and petroglyphs. That was my expertise. And so I had to, write papers on what this picture is, what the story is telling. And then you have to send it out to get it peer reviewed and have people tear you apart. And that's where you find the truth in the story, because people will say, well, I think this means this, and you got a point, you know. And then when you throw it out there and let it get tore apart is when you can come to the truth, the facts. So that's kind of what we do too, is when we find stuff, I don't hoard it. I don't say, hey, I got this and nobody can see it. We actually throw it out there and said, hey, tear me up, tell me I'm wrong, you know. And let's see if this is real and this is not. And another thing I do is compare a lot of stuff, you know, because I speak at a lot of conferences. So the stuff we find, I'll throw it in front of Jeff Meldrum and, you know, all the other guys out there and say, hey, look at this footprint. Am I good? You know, does it match yours, or, you know, and they're not always right either, you know. So you
but
know,
I think the difference in like what I'm like thinking of and talking about more is like, you're willing to put it out there and have the people who are you know, the Dr. Meldrums of the world, or like the Scott Nelsons of the world, who, you know, Scott's known for his like breaking down audio and all that stuff. You're willing to put it out there and bring it to these people and say, like, what do you think? Like, tell me what you think. I think what I'm talking about are the self-professed experts who, you know what I'm saying? Like who will tell you up and down that what they have is, you know, it's the gospel. That's definitely a Bigfoot. This is definitely that, but they're not willing to subject it to those, you know, the quote unquote tests, you know, like they're not willing to put that evidence in front of the people who can, you know, kind of really say, okay, that is a footprint. That's not a human footprint. It's not a bear. It's probably one of these things, or that audio doesn't belong to any known species on the planet. But yet they profess so often that, you know, they have the answers. They know, which is something that goes on in this community, you know, quite often, sadly. So anyway, it's refreshing that you guys aren't. The point I was trying to make is like, you're not hiding anything. Everything is out there for the world to see. You're saying, like you said, you're asking people, come tell me what you think. What, you know, is this good? Is this good? Is it bad? Whatever. Let us know. And I love the slogan. We investigate the unexplained. We don't explain the uninvestigated.
I love that.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. It's so perfect. Who came up with that one?
That would be me, actually.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So you recently did a show. Now that we're on this topic, anyway, you recently did a show, and it was why Bigfoot reports are so important. Why are they so important?
Well, because I actually use, well, for several reasons. One, to investigate this subject, we need to get all the evidence, or all the data, basically, we can. So every report every report we get, we use, there's always some little piece of the puzzle in it that we can put into the big picture, you know. Well, one of the things that are real important to us is, because I'm trying to figure out the culture of these things, because I'm a cultural anthropologist, and we're trying to figure out how they live, what their habits are, that sort of thing. And if we figure that out, that's going to get us closer to being able to locate them, basically. And another thing is the reports that we use, you know, we find, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but we find footprints every year, at least one set of footprints somewhere every year. And the reason we're able to do that is because we get reports from people, and then we can travel to that location and investigate that location. So when we get a bunch of reports in a certain area at a certain time, we can go there and check it out. But another thing I've done over the years is I've went through all the reports from the BFRO and the ones that we get on our website and the Bigfoot Mapping Project. And what I've done is I've got a huge map, and I put dates, pins in the map of different colors. I got 12 colors for the 12 months. And I've been able to track, you're going to see these Bigfoot in this area in March. You're going to see these Bigfoot in this area in June. You're going to see, so that's kind of what we've been using reports for, is to basically track them.
That, yeah. And that is, I think that is the biggest reason that they are important at the end of the day. It provides all this data. That's amazing that you have this map, that you've collected this data, and now you're able to say, like, okay, these guys are here then, these guys are here then. Have you found a pattern at all with them and their movements? When are they most active? Are there, and maybe this is a little too deep, but like, are there more sightings or encounters, say after rainstorms or anything along those lines?
One thing that I have found, and it's going to be shocking to the Bigfoot community, most sightings
I love shocking.
Most sightings are during the day.
I love it. I love it.
I know people go out at night and knock on trees and stuff, but most sighting reports are during the day.
It makes sense. I mean, it's hard to see things at night, number one, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me that during the day. I never believed that, like, these beings, creatures, whatever you want to call them, I never believed that they were like just fully like nocturnal. That's it. They don't move during the day whatsoever. That, to me, that was like hogwash. It couldn't be possible, because there were so many people who were having encounters during the day, and sometimes it was one, other times it was two. Sometimes people were having activity where they said it sounded like there was around the four of them surrounding me, like. So the whole theory that there is like one sentry that watches over the group while they sleep during the day, for me, that went out the window a long time ago. Maybe that's how some of these groups operate, but I think in the bigger picture, people were having, so many different types of encounters and activity happening during the day that I just couldn't believe that was just like that was the case across the board. But yeah, that makes sense. I always say I go out during the day all the time. I mean, there's a couple reasons. Number one, I don't really have many people to go out with at night, and it's not safe to go out alone at night. But I go out during the day because, like, it's easy to investigate during the day, right? I can see better. It's easier for me to look and like see if there's tracks or pick up hair if I see hair. It's difficult to see those things at night.
Yeah.
At nighttime, obviously, like there's a level of cover that might make them feel safer. If you have the tech to help you do those investigations, if you have thermal, which I think is probably the best nighttime tool that there is. If you have thermal, then you have a better chance of catching something. Which, for me too, speaking back to the picture evidence, I think the thermal evidence now is probably the most solid visual evidence that we have, because it's hard to fake. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
And I have thermals, and I have worked with some of the best thermal equipment in the world, because I'm an Army vet. Also, I did 2 tours in Iraq, and we had some killer
thank you
thermal apps or thermal
yeah, I bet
night vision stuff civilians haven't got to see. I could count coins in people's pockets with them. And and I think the thermals, and they're getting I meant the civilian thermals are getting better, but even if you catch a creature out in the woods, if it's a guy in a suit, you'll be able to see through it and see if it is a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Because the heat signature, so yeah, I think that's going to be probably one of our best tools. Not that photos are ever going to count ever again, but
Yeah,
because of today's technology. But yeah, so
sadly, unfortunately, that's just that's where we're at now with that stuff. As far as collecting evidence goes, what has been your best tool
for collecting evidence?
Yeah, like, has it been audio recorder? Has it been just, catching, finding the tracks that you find because of the data that you've collected? What has been the best for you?
Well, footprints are awesome. Like I said, we probably find one set a year.
That's so good.
Yeah, but the other is audio. I think I've got more audio evidence than anything else. Let's see, I can't remember when this was. I think it was year before last. Time doesn't work in my brain, but anyway, I think about a year or so ago, we were investigating a tree structure, and we got into a tree knocking situation there. They actually led us away from the tree structure with tree knocks, and then we literally had rock clacks and tree knocks for 20 minutes with them trying to lead us away from this structure, which was very interesting. I've got a couple of whoop recordings at night. One of them, I'm not sure. It might be a coyote. I don't know. We've had a recording of chest thumping.
Oh, nice.
We got that. And yeah, I was going to say audio is probably the most stuff we actually collect. We've got 3 sets of hair now. That doesn't matter.
Have you sent it out?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Have you gotten results on it?
Yeah. Dr. Jeff's checked out all 3 sets, and they do match the Bigfoot.
Oh, that's awesome.
So. That's
so awesome. Yeah, I'm a big audio guy. Like, I think it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, like, and this is actually a kind of an argument that happened. Well, not an argument, but a discussion that happened in the chat on your show a couple weeks ago. Was, the trail camera thing, and putting out trail cameras that, like, those things are great for hunters. They don't seem to work really good for this stuff, for whatever reason. We don't know for sure. There's obviously the theory that they can sense or see the infrared, which makes the most sense, probably.
Yep.
But the audio stuff, we've heard potentially audio of these things literally coming and picking up people's audio recorders, potentially, right? Coming that close where they're breathing into these things. It doesn't seem to bother them whatsoever.
Right.
They almost seem interested to find out what it is. With those cameras, though, they don't want anything to do with them. But on the same kind of plane, their motion sensors seem to not work they don't work the same way as a infrared, and so they don't scare them away like motion lights.
Right. Yeah, that's something that we started doing about a year ago, is taping over the IR on our cameras and putting up, like, just a dollar store motion light that you can buy, the solar powered motion lights. And we have actually had there's a guy in the chat, Scott Goebel, and I he and I actually had a very interesting encounter with those lights popping off. But the thing is, it didn't trigger the cameras. So I don't know if the IR triggers the cameras. I don't know how they work that well, you know, or the intricacies of how what triggers the cameras. And if we cover up the IR lights, does it stop them from triggering? But we actually had had the motion lights go off one night, and something crunching around our campground. And we had put out, you know, like golf balls and stuff, little stacks of rocks and things out. And the next morning, we went and checked all those, and they had been all rearranged.
Interesting.
And,
very
and
interesting.
Yeah, and that's another thing I just started doing about a year ago. You know, I didn't put a lot of faith in doing gifting and, you know, putting up the golf balls and things. But after the encounter we had actually it was this summer, it was very interesting. The rocks we put out were flat rocks that we got from the beach. So, and then we were up in near Crater Lake, Oregon, in the Cascades. And so we stacked these beach rocks up. So they're different. They're not from there, you know, they're not the same rocks that was in the area. And we stacked them on a stump, and they would get rearranged every night. And then one of the rocks took it's a kind of a flat rock, and we had it on a stump. It took it and drove it in the stump like an axe head, and stuck it in the stump. And then the next day we left it there, and then the next day we came out and we drove further into the stump.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. Well, I don't know any animals that do that in the forest.
No, I don't.
And I would imagine that's going to take some strength to do.
Yeah. And hands.
Yeah. And hands. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to revert back to something you said when you talked about the tree structure before. There's a lot of different thoughts and beliefs and theories on the tree structures. You know, there's a lot of division amongst people in the community about them. I'm guessing just from what you said, you believe that they mean something, that they're not just like that. Not every tree structure out there is not some bushcrafter or, you know, some natural thing, like that. These creatures are making them in some instances. We run into a lot of stuff out there because I spend probably, the rocks smelled like the ocean. You know, I've run into a lot of tree breaks and stuff, and I don't put a lot of emphasis on those, you know, because that could be anything, you know, wind, snow, whatever. Sure.
But we have found that one tree structure that what it was trees woven together to make like an igloo. Almost, it was round, shaped like an igloo. But it had it was 14 feet around, 5 feet tall. It had like fir boughs in the bottom of it to make a bed. Had a little opening kind of towards the top, and every branch in there was broken. There wasn't one that was cut. I checked every single one of them. There was one tree that was, and this stuff was woven together. And then there was one tree that was woven into it. That was about a 3-inch around fir tree. Still had the root ball in it where it had been pulled out of the ground. So I'm not thinking people can do that. I can't pull weeds out of the garden, you know. But
me either.
Yeah, Dewey. Yeah, Dewey, you're not so good at that, huh?
So what I'm thinking my theory is on this tree structure is that I think they build them as like little playpens for their young ones, because the only opening was towards the top and it wasn't very big, but you could actually reach down in there and put something in there. And I'm guessing that those ones are basically playpens that they put their young in while they go off and go hunting or whatever.
That's an excellent theory. It makes a ton of sense. I've seen one structure that's similar to what you're talking about. Just one, woven like you're talking about. It looked like a tunnel, is what it looked like just a tunnel, and it was. I mean, it had to have been thousands of sticks to like woven together to create this. It was probably I don't know, 3.5 or 4 feet high, and it was, you know, just kind of curved over like this down to the ground, but it went back about 10 feet, and like something would have to get down and crawl into it. And I remember looking at this and going, this just doesn't jive. Like that, for a human to do that, you would have to spend so much time. I tried to like weave like just 10 sticks together in a pattern like while I was there, and it was incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Yeah, I just don't, you know, like you said, the breaks and stuff could be anything, but when you start finding things like that, it's very difficult for me to say, you know, that this is human. Now there's things out there that definitely are. I mean, like you come across like people put a lot of, you know, put a lot of weight into like teepees, but like if you look at some of these teepees, you know, some of these things have like cross beams and stuff. It's like Bigfoot's not putting cross beams in their teepees. That's, you know, he didn't go to carpentry school, so or he wasn't a house framer, so those are a little bit different.
Yeah, we found one teepee structure that I would put as unexplained, you know. And I was talking with Tom Seawood. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a Native American Bigfooter, and he had an interesting theory, and that in the Native culture, they have what's called the red tent. Back in the day, they had that teepee. So when women were on their period, they would stay in the red tent, and men would stay away. And he said those are Bigfoot red tents. That's his theory.
Oh man, I say it all the time. The Native Americans were probably the smartest people to ever touch this earth. And that's just another reason why they were the smartest. I'm losing every female subscriber I have right now. Oh God, that's amazing. I mean, listen, every theory, like that's another thing, right? The acceptance of evidence is important, right? So we don't like, you know, I don't know. So I'm gonna ask this first. What is your belief about these? What do you believe they are? Do you believe they're flesh and blood? Do you believe there's another aspect to them? I know, being a science guy, like most of the time that leans towards the natural stuff.
Yeah, I actually lean toward the natural thing, but my theory is that they're not an ape. I think they're just an early hominid that hasn't went extinct yet. You know, they walk upright. From all the encounters people talk about, and people, one of the things you see in a lot of reports, it looks so human. It looks so human. You hear that
all
a lot, all the time. So that means it has a human-like face. That means it doesn't have a bulge like a primate would, or that means it doesn't have. They don't have big canine teeth. They have smaller canine teeth like us. That makes them omnivore like us. So my theory is that they are a relic hominid, that they're an older human species, so they're not too much different than us. So yeah, that's kind of where I land. You know, I don't have proof, but I mean, that's my working theory right now, is that they're a relic hominid. They're another human species that haven't went extinct. And I think they're older than people think. I don't think they're in the same group that we are. I think they're an older and even an older species.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little bit torn. Because like I've talked to some people who've had experiences that were, and these, you know, these are people that I fully believe, like 150%, you know, that have had experiences that were strange, that were not something that you would just say, you know, could, you know, there's no way that this could just be a natural flesh and blood thing. So I'm a little torn. Like, I lean more towards like probably like flesh and blood, but they have an ability to use some kind of science that we just don't understand yet, which gives them the ability to maybe, you know, not cloak, but like blend so well with their
Camouflage.
environment. Yeah, because like if you're looking at one and it's standing in the middle of a path and like it's, you know, auburn colored, gray face, whatever, if you put that thing in, like, you know, in some green foliage, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, auburn and green are two totally different colors, but somehow, some way, they seem to blend no matter where they are. Like, no matter what color and no matter where they are, they seem to blend right in.
All right, I have a weird theory about that too.
Give it to
me. Did you know polar bears aren't white?
They're clear.
They're clear. And the hair samples that we find, when you look at them through a microscope, they don't have a medulla in them, so they're not solid. They're clear. So if you have kind of a translucent hair, it may look brown sometimes. It may look green sometimes. It depends on the lighting and where you're sitting. You know, and so that's possibly they do camouflage because they basically don't reflect light the same as we do.
It basically takes on the color of whatever colors around them, right, if there's light introduced. Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
It does.
Right, Dewey? I mean,
I agree.
It's very interesting for sure. I've seen pictures of the translucent hairs, and when there was light introduced to it, it almost looked like a rainbow. Like it just like it would sparkle, like, you know, like a rainbow, or like, what do they call it? Like a prism would.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it, you know, that definitely makes sense. Somebody had a question. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It was a good question too. It was, if you could give Sasquatch, if you could give them a name, a scientific name, what would it be? Homo something? It's pretty.
No, I think that it'd be more the Australopithecus. So it'd be Australopithecus something.
Yeah,
Violette, because I'm the one who discovered it. So no. No.
Fair enough.
No. So yeah, I think, like I said, I think they're older than we are, because we're in the Homo bracket, or the yeah. So you know, because there's like Homo heidelbergensis, Homo nadali, floresiensis, us Homo sapiens, and Homo neanderthal all live together at the same time. I think they're older. I think they're in the Australopithecine era. Just frankly, because of the way they look. Because all the ones I'm talking about here look like us. You know, so, like, if you were to take a modern day, if there was a modern day Neanderthal and a human standing next to each other, it just looked like a stocky dude. You really couldn't tell the difference. In fact, you're looking at a Neanderthal right now, by the way, in case you didn't know that. They're still alive. 5%,
Okay.
5% of all the DNA, 5% of DNA of most French people are Neanderthal. They didn't go extinct. We bred them out. So 4% of my DNA, because I'm Cajun, I'm, like I said, I'm one of the most dangerous people in the world. I'm an educated Cajun. But yeah, so 5% of, I actually had my DNA done. 5% of my DNA is Neanderthal. So in this group, they were able to interbreed, just different dogs interbreeding, basically. So, but I think they're older than us. So I think they're another, further back the timeline than we are. Gotcha.
Alex Petkoff says most non-African are supposed to have some extent of Neanderthal DNA. Then there's also the if you have the R factor in your blood, then you have the rhesus monkey gene. Is it correct? Right?
I don't know about that.
I thought that's what the R factor meant.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the R factor means you have like more rhesus monkey gene or just some rhesus monkey gene in you. Interesting stuff though when you think about all that, like the DNA stuff.
Yeah, and well, here's what I learned is that that picture of the monkey that turns into the guy, that you learned in school, that's bunk. That's not how it happened. We didn't evolve from apes. We're a totally different thing than apes. I mean, similar paths, or maybe they even broke off from us at some time. But if you look back in time, like the oldest, humans we have, from the Mendocene era is if you take this group of people and then their population got to the point where the area they lived in couldn't sustain them all, so some of them broke off here. We'll say these guys were in Africa. The people that broke off ended up in Europe. So over 10,000 years, their bodies changed because they're eating different diets and they're living in a different habitat. They're just still the same people. They just look different.
Gotcha.
So throughout time, if you just think of it that way, it's we're still the one group of people. I mean, they might be a Neanderthal and a human, but they're still the same people. They just look different.
Gotcha. Yeah. Someone's RH is a void in the gene. 15% of the population has RH in their blood.
Yeah.
Sorry, just reading some of the comments. Yeah. Interesting. I'm not like a super caught up on like the evolutionary process of I know like the basics of what people think they are and how they came to be and all that stuff, but so then here's my question though. So the Melba Ketchum study, the DNA, did that not say that it was like 98% human and 2% unknown ape species?
Yep.
So then how, if so you think that they're a hominid, but are related to us or no?
Yes, related to us, just older.
So they have ape DNA in them. So did they then somehow like interbreed or breed outside? How does that work? Explain it, because I'm not great at this stuff. So
well, we're all apes,
right?
Chimpanzees, are 99%. There's only 1% difference between us and a chimpanzee. Because like I said, what if chimps or apes broke off from us? What if they evolved differently from us, not us from them? Or even both ways. I mean, we're still 99% or 98% in this case, the same. which means we have 2 legs, 2 feet, 2 arms. We stand basically upright. We have opposing thumbs. So the difference is just basically how much hair we have and how smart we are. Basically, you know. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that the Bigfoot is another human species. They're just 2% different than we are.
Okay.
But they're still human, I think. You know, we're all apes. We're all primates. And that's another thing too, is in the Melba Ketchum study, is that a lot of people don't know this either. There's Earth DNA. If you get down to the very bottom, there's a code in everybody's DNA that says you're from Earth. Trees have it. That was one of the things that shocked me when I was in school. Is like the professor telling me, "Do you know you have the same DNA as a tree?" I'm like, "No, I don't." But there is DNA in a tree. Everything that's from this planet has a code in it somewhere that says you're from Earth, basically the Earth code. There's only one creature on this planet that does not have the Earth code, and that's an octopus, because they're not.
I was going to guess octopus.
Yeah, they're not from here.
They're true aliens.
They're true aliens. Yep.
I just read something about that actually.
Yeah.
That's fascinating in and of itself. We have an octopus in the chat right now.
Yeah, we do. I saw that.
So that's probably why you don't have any friends, octopus, because you're an alien. You don't quite fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Man, it's just fascinating, this stuff. I wish I understood more about it. But this is why I talk to people like yourself, because I learn from people like you. All right, switching topics here a little bit, because we don't have unlimited time. You had an encounter, correct?
I did.
Okay, can you walk us through that? Tell us when that was, and
Okay.
from top to bottom, what happened?
It was roughly 5 years ago. I was out bigfooting. Let me back up. 25 years, no, 20, I've been doing this Bigfoot thing for about 25 years. Most of the time it was, I kind of stayed in the closet until about the last 5-6 years ago, because I was working in colleges and doing research on stuff. And if I was saying I was out looking for Bigfoot, I would lose funding.
Yeah, sure.
That sort of thing.
Understandable.
Yeah. So, but so what happened is we had started this website 5 or 6 years ago. At that time, we weren't Squatch America. We were Blue Mountain Bigfoot Research, because that's where we lived. That's where I grew up, is in the Blue Mountains. In fact, the house I lived in was 15 miles south of Deduck Springs, if you're familiar with Deduck Springs, or the Freeman film.
Yes. Yep.
That's exactly. I lived 15 miles from there. My whole life. That's where I grew up. So there was always Bigfoot stories and legends there. But anyway, so we had set up our website, and I had got 5 reports from 5 different people that didn't know each other in the same area at the same time, within the same week, actually.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, that's where they're at. So I had went up and hiked that area every day for 2 weeks. It was only like 15 miles from my house, so I could drive up there, hike the area. And then, so I was going up there for an afternoon and an evening, and it was kind of funny. My wife had a friend whose dad was having a birthday, and he always wanted to go bigfooting. So it was his first time ever going into the woods. So I brought him with me. I'd only met him that day. So we went in there, we started hiking the woods, and I was hiking down a trail, and I smelt the smell. I mean, I had hundreds of reports about it. I had never smelt it myself. It is hard to describe. It really is. It almost makes you gag. So it was kind of brushy, couldn't see where it was coming from. It was drizzling rain off and on a little bit. So we decided, hey, let's hike down the road and see if it follows it or the smell goes away. I was hoping maybe it would walk up on the road and follow us because it was kind of muddy. You know, it wasn't really a road. It was an old logging road that had been bermed, so you couldn't drive down it. Probably nobody drove down it in 20 years. But so the smell went away. So we turned around and went back until the smell came back. So I just hollered off in the woods. I just went just to see what happened, and it mimicked me. It went almost exactly what I did. And that's when I saw the motion. I heard it where it came from, and I saw this little head through this little opening going back and forth like this, looking at me. I had my camera ready to go. I got up, I got one shot. I had 3 seconds. Click, we heard this whistle off in the woods. It turned it and walked off in the woods and disappeared. But I didn't leave it with that. So here's the deal. I did take a picture of it, and I got a blurry picture of it, but I also got a picture of nothing there. I also spent 3 days there after that. We went down to the site. I measured how far it was. I figured out how tall this thing was by shooting lasers through trees. We found 16-inch footprints with 9-inch footprints next to them walking up the hill where it walked away from us. So I got all the evidence, basically. So it wasn't me just shooting pictures in the woods and picking faces out of them.
Sure. So, you did it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my encounter. It was 3 seconds. I got to see a face for 3 seconds.
Typical, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah.
That's kind of just how the game is. It's most people have these very fleeting. It's like it's just seconds, and it's enough for somebody to see it with their own eyes. Very rarely is it enough time for them to fumble around, grab their camera, focus, zoom in, get a good picture. I mean, this is the nature of the beast. No pun intended. But you do have other picture, correct?
Another picture? Yeah.
You do have a picture that is that I saw on your show that is very interesting. It's of 2 faces.
Yep. That's the same picture.
Oh, that's the same picture.
Yeah. The one I saw was the smaller one that's in front. I never saw the one standing still behind it with my own eyes, but the camera caught it.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. That is a very, very interesting picture. What's really interesting about it to me too, maybe I'm the only one, the 2 beings in that picture don't look alike to me at all. They look so physically different. I mean, they don't look like you don't look like you and me exactly, but they don't look like each other a lot either. But that again it lends itself to the theory that they are more human than anything, because if you look at the 3 faces on the screen, we all look very different from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, my thing is, one of them was a juvenile and one of them was the adult, mom, dad. I don't know which one. Yeah. And the third one that whistled off in the woods that these 2 left and walked away from me, there was a third one there too.
Interesting.
I think the whole family, mom, dad, kid, I'm pretty sure.
And that's another thing people say. Like, usually people say, listen, if there's one, there's more. Very rarely are they alone. What is your thoughts on their their territorial living situations? Like, do you believe that they migrate? Do you believe they live in the same areas for most of their lives or all of their lives, and then the younger ones go off and find their own places, or what do you think?
I kind of think that they have a territory, mainly because if you look back in some of the historical stuff, one of the people that I look back to a lot is Paul Freeman, because he's got, oh, I don't know how many. I'll have to ask his son, but I know he's got probably 70, 80 casts that he got over the years. Him and Westmoreland and Dar Addington, all three of those were casting stuff there for 20 years. In that area, they were finding footprints. And the crazy thing is, like, he found, like, the one that he dubbed Big Jill, the one he got the video of.
Big Jill.
Big Jill, yeah. He found her footprints, and then 4 years later, Dr. Jeff Meldrum found a set of footprints in that area, and they cast them and they matched, but nobody had seen her for 4 years. And then all of a sudden she comes back, and then that we found out that later on, 4 years later, they found prints of her in that same area again. So is it a 4-year pattern that she's not there? You know, so we're guessing that I do think they have they don't migrate, like, you know, we don't go here for the winter or here for the summer, but I think there's a pattern of about a couple 100 miles that they just travel. That's their territory, but they're in this part of it for a while, and then they're in this part of it for a year, and then this part of it for a year, kind of deal.
Gotcha. Alex Petikoff and my buddy Brian, well, we're all New England guys, us three. And so the New England stuff is near and dear to our heart. We would like to know your thoughts on northern Maine, or Maine in general, because you have done some research up there, correct?
I've done lots of research. I got a lot of family up there too, being Acadian French, you know. But
so what are your thoughts of that area?
Oh, I think it's got a lot of Bigfoot up there. I really do. We actually found some footprints twice in that area. We spent 2 summers up there.
You found a huge one, correct?
Yeah, 22 inches. Yeah.
That's massive.
Yeah. And we found 2 of those in a gravel road, actually. It was heavy enough to leave an imprint in a gravel road.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and then one of our hair samples came from there too, in Maine. But yeah, so the North Maine woods, there's probably thousands of Bigfoot there, and there's no way you're going to run across one.
No.
If anybody's ever been there.
It's so thick and dense, man.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I wasn't like, I've been up there, you know, before in my life, but I had never seen some of the areas going north the way that I saw them until I took this trip with Alex and Brian up to the Canadian border. We were literally separated from the Canadian border by a stream, and me and Alex took a day to just drive through some of these old roads, these forest roads, these logging roads on the mountains, and it was some of the most incredible thick forest I've ever seen, but it was everywhere. I mean, like, even the towns, you drive into the town and there's like houses are kind of spread out, but behind every house and surrounding every house is just more woods.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Incredible.
It's the thickest stuff. I mean, I bet you're at best you can see probably 20 feet into the forest in Maine.
Yeah.
It's crazy how thick it is. I don't know how the moose get through there with those horns. It's crazy.
That's what. So it's so crazy you say that, because we camped out. We were actually in New Hampshire and we camped, but we were way up north. So we camp out and we end up going to this area behind our camp. That was a spruce forest in the middle of this normal like hardwood forest. It just kind of like was there. And it was really weird. Like, I don't know, it looked like it may have been planted there at some point because it was kind of out of place. Like it was surrounded by the rest of this normal forest. And then in the middle is just this big patch of spruce. And it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It reminded me of like the Pacific Northwest. You know, you had all the lichen hanging off the trees. The ground was this soft green moss. Like it was so beautiful. But it was, I mean, it was thick. These trees were everywhere, like just staggered all over the place. And Alex even likened it to parts of Alaska. And when we were in there, you know, you could see in between the trees, but there were so many of them that like you can only see 20 feet ahead of you. And then there was nowhere to look anymore. It was like everywhere you turn, there's a tree, there's a tree, there's a tree. It was amazing though. It really was. People are
I was going to say where we found our stuff in Maine was on the pretty much the base of Mount Katahdin, which is the highest point in Maine. And Katahdin in the native terms means devil or monster. So a lot of times I'll go back to some of the Native American stuff and where they have legends of monsters, you know. So Mount Katahdin in Maine is one of those places.
There's been quite a few reports coming out of that area. I remember there was a video that was taken, I don't know how long ago, maybe it was like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, of a couple hikers who had seen two that were behind a tree and like kind of kept poking its head out, and then one ran between the trees to get to the other one. It was an interesting video for sure, but yeah, I mean that all that area up there, I'm like, I've just never seen forest like it in my life. Not so much of it in such a, I don't know. It's just crazy. If you fly overhead there, like looking down on that stuff with a drone, there's nothing but trees everywhere you look. Chances of you finding one of these things out there are slim because they just have so many places to go and to hide. People, I'm going to ask, people are asking me to ask, do you happen to have the picture that you took?
I do.
If you don't, it's not a big deal, but they're asking if they could possibly see it, if that's okay with you.
Okay, I have it on my phone. I don't know if I can't share it here.
You could, if you could show it to the camera, I'm for as good as that is.
I can do that.
Okay, guys, bear with us. It might not be the best, but we're trying to get you something. If you can't, if you guys, you can go watch it on his channel too.
Yeah, I actually just did a video about it actually, but
oh yeah, there you go. You can still see it pretty good. Look at that.
Yeah, there's a juvenile and an adult. I only saw the juvenile.
Look at the size of the face.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Just looking at those two together, like the face on the adult, it looks so massive.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool,
adult
man.
Had 16-inch footprints.
That's so cool. That juvenile face looks so much like the one my buddy Ben caught. I mean, it's really, it's uncanny how alike they look. Yeah, guys, go on the channel and watch. First, number one, go over and subscribe, please. You know me, I don't tell you this all the time, but I thoroughly enjoy the show. I thoroughly enjoy what you guys do. So please go over and subscribe to the channel. Go watch the channel. It's great stuff. You just did the encounter video, right? Where you talked about the encounter and then shared that, and then you also shared it on it was the evidence or the reports, why Bigfoot reports are so important episode. And then you had another photo on that first episode there, the Bigfoot, why reports are so important. Who took that photo? It was the over the shoulder, like behind him.
Oh, yeah. It was one of the things we do a lot is the reason I go to a lot of these festivals and stuff. Actually, we go, I think I spoke at 14 Bigfoot festivals last summer, and which is a lot. It's almost every weekend. It's stupid, but we get reports from people, and there's 4 shows that we do every year that are sportsman shows that aren't Bigfoot conferences that I actually speak at, and we have a booth, and these are outdoor sports shows that we go to. And so we've got these guys who are outfitters, hunting guides and stuff, and none of them will be public about what they saw, but they'll pull me back in the hallway and say, hey, this is what happened to me, kind of stuff. So one of them was out at night, and they were hiking back, and he just kind of spun around and took a picture of the guy behind him. And
this is crazy.
So this is the picture of the guy. Let's see if I can get it right. Guy behind him. But if you look right,
look at that. Look at that thing. Look at that thing. That is,
it's not focusing really well, but yeah, it's you got the eye shine. The arms are so long, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But so he spun around and took that picture, and it was ducking down when it saw him spin around to take a picture.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
look at
that. Was from one of the
that eye shine is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, they look so big, the eyes, and then the arms that I can definitely see the one arm looks just so long. Oh God, yeah, look at that. That's so creepy, man.
Yeah.
That's so
You got
creepy.
the conical head and everything.
Sure does. Yep.
Yep. That was on Mount Shasta.
You can see the muscles in the arm.
You can.
Golly, look at that. That's amazing. I'm going to link, when we're done with the show, I don't know why I didn't do it earlier. Oh, people are linking it now. Thank you for doing that. I'm going to put a link up on the community tab after this to their channel and to the last at the episode of Scott's Encounter, and then the other one that I was talking about. And you guys can go watch, please. Please subscribe, support. You know how it is, man. Please support good people who are doing good things, and you guys, I think, are doing great things. So Dewey, you've been very quiet. I know I talk a lot.
Yeah, I've been bouncing back and forth messages on Facebook, trying to keep up with the chat too. I'm a firm believer in what Abe Lincoln said. What's that? It is better to remain silent and thought a fool than speak up and remove all doubt.
Are you trying to say something? Are you trying to tell me something?
No, I was referring to myself.
Oh.
I feel bad. I just start talking and get on a roll.
No, go ahead. I'm learning something.
You're what?
I'm learning. I'm listening and learning.
You're learning something. What's with the Ghostbuster gear tonight, by the way? I see the Ghostbuster cup and a shirt in the background.
There we go.
I'm a big Ghostbuster fan. Just so everybody knows that. My buddy Fresh, what is it though we are dealing with? My buddy Fresh wants to know, what is it that we are dealing with really? Well, I think he mentioned that earlier, that he believes it's a relic hominid that's from a long time ago. Long time ago. These are questions that I know are very kind of far out, and they don't have answers, but I like to ask them anyway, just to see if you know what anyone's thoughts and theories are on some of them. How big when these things are born, right? If they grow to be such giant sizes, I mean, size 22, a 22-inch foot is frigging enormous.
Yeah.
And to be heavy enough to leave a print in a gravel road,
Yeah.
We talking like what? It's got to be near 1,000 pounds at that point.
Well, I'll tell you what we did is where we found the footprint. I took a stone that was about the size of the footprint, a rock, and I set it on the ground, and then we started stacking weight on it to see how much weight we had to put on it to sink it. As far as that thing, it was 800 pounds.
800 pounds.
Wow. And that was on 1 foot, so it might have been heavier than that, you know, because
right, weight shifting and all that.
Yeah.
That is insane. 800 pounds, 22-inch foot. I mean, the average size people talk about is between 7 and 9 feet is usually what you hear. What do you think? Do you think these things can get much larger than that?
Oh, I think the one with the 22-inch foot is probably 10 foot at least.
Good golly, Miss Molly. 10 feet, guys. Just this. It's just mind blowing to me. If you have a hard time with visualizing height, next time you're near a playground, go stand under a basketball hoop. 10 feet is the rim of a basketball hoop. So stand underneath that and look up at it, and that's 10 feet. That is a giant. Like legitimately a giant. If you were standing next to a 10-foot tall, hair-covered bipedal hominid that weighed 800 pounds plus, you are staring at, to most people, a monster.
A monster. Yep.
Right? I mean, so when people come with this BS, like, oh, why didn't you take out your phone and take a picture? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, probably because they were scared to death. I mean, most human beings, if they ran into something like that, are going to be terrified, and rightfully so. I think most people who even are in this topic, they believe that they're going to have an encounter and see something like that, and they're going to be just fine. And I don't think you're gonna. I don't think you're gonna. I think just natural instinct. Yeah, I think it's just natural instinct that your adrenaline's going to spike, the physiological things are going to happen, and you're going to be like, oh my God. I mean,
yeah, we've got several reports from people that I've interviewed and talked with, and there's been several of them that these people, like one lady said, we saw this thing cross the road. They were up cutting wood. They were coming out of the hills. They crossed the road in front of them. They walked up the hill. They stopped the truck, jumped out. She was going to get a picture of the Bigfoot, you know, and it turned around and it looked at her from behind a tree. And she said the next thing they knew, they were a half a mile down the road running, and they didn't remember starting to run. And I've heard reports like that over and over, that they just, like, you know, it just scared them so bad. And there's still people that I've had guys that give me reports that said, well, you know, 22 years ago we were doing this and blah blah blah, and I'll be watching the hair on their arms stand up while they're telling the story because it still scares them. You know, so it's a life-changing thing. I've interviewed over 75 tribes about Bigfoot stuff, and they have names for these. You know, I've got 75 different names for Bigfoot from different tribes and stuff. But the interesting thing is half of them are like benevolent brother, spirit being, hairy man, friend. The other half is cannibal, monster, Wendigo, you know, stuff like that.
Negative names.
Negative names. And so what's interesting is most of the southern tribes is where they get all the negative names for these things, and the northern tribes not so much. So I guess southern Bigfoot are meaner than northern Bigfoot.
Well, if I know that the stuff that I've heard, not all of it, but I've heard some pretty crazy stories coming out of Oklahoma. The Hanobius stuff is scary stuff. I had a gentleman on my show, Mark Copeland, who had these things living in the woods around his house, and they were so brazen, they didn't give an F. Like, they just didn't care. And he had guns, and he fired guns at them, and they were not scared at all. And apparently he had some really interesting photographic evidence and video evidence. One of the things he did was what you did. He was an electrician by trade, but he specialized in security systems. And like, he took an old security system and put that up after he realized that they wouldn't come near the infrared stuff, right? He didn't have, number one, he didn't have a foot in this game whatsoever. So he didn't know anything about this stuff. Realized that they wouldn't come near it, put up this other security system with motion detectors and lights, and realized that they would trigger these lights. And after they triggered them once or twice, that's all it took, once or twice, they would not trigger them again. So he would consistently change the placement of the lights because they picked up on it that fast where the placement was. I mean, the level of intelligence we're talking about with them is that in and of itself is so impressive that it's scary. Like, tactical movements, the ability to remain completely hidden if they want to. When you hear people talk about what they can do physically when they've seen them move, like run, jump, we're talking on a level with like superhuman stuff. I mean, 800 pounds, 10 feet tall. If a gorilla's strength is immeasurable, then
yeah,
you know what I mean? That thing, we are literally talking like Superman stuff. There's a report I always go back to when I think about the strength. In the Bridgewater Triangle years ago, there was a police officer who was parked in the Freetown State Forest, and he was just sitting there in the dark quietly. Didn't have much to do. All of a sudden, something lifted his cruiser off the ground from behind, and then he hit the brakes instinctively. The brake lights light this thing up from its chest up. All he sees is like, the torso, and it's covered in hair and it's massive. It drops the car, lets out a growl, and then this blood curdling growl, and then leaves. I mean, this thing just lifted the car off the ground like it was nothing, like it was curling a 15-pound weight, and then dropped it. Now we're talking in the 1960s or 70s when cars were all made out of metal. Like you're talking about a couple thousand pounds, easy. Easy. It's just crazy. It's just crazy, man. Dewey, is there anything you want to say? You're so quiet. I always feel so bad.
I'm just kind of monitoring the chat and letting y'all talk. I guess that I'm learning something. So,
all right, I just feel bad.
You were talking about the 10 feet. If you're sitting in your house, just look up at the ceiling. That's 8 feet. Imagine 2 more feet above that.
Yeah.
Would be,
right. Massive. And thinking about weight wise, I'm a big guy. I'm a fatty, admittedly. I put on some weight.
Oh, you like that? Oh, he froze up again. Yeah.
Wake up!
But
now.
I think I know where he was going though. Yeah. I'm a pretty big guy too. I'm 6'3", and I'm 260 pounds. So it's got to be heavier than me. There we go. Yep.
He's back.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I weigh 287 pounds, right? And that's a pretty big guy. It takes a big guy to weigh 287 pounds. Think about 800 pounds. It is just like Andre the Giant was 7 feet tall. He weighed 540 pounds when he was at his largest, and that is a giant of a man. You're talking 250 pounds more, if not more than that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and the scary thing is they're not fat.
No.
And you know, because muscle weight is heavier than fat, actually. So that's 800 pounds of muscle.
Yeah. Yeah, which is way scarier.
Yeah.
A guy who's a 300-pound bodybuilder next to like me, who's 300 pounds and out of shape, like the bodybuilder looks way bigger. I mean, he looks way bigger. So yeah, 800 pounds of muscles is just terrifying.
Yeah,
it is terrifying to think about. Well, anyway, listen, I usually do about 90 minutes. I don't like to keep people too long. I know people's attention spans usually kind of wane, you know, if you go too long. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think this was a really great conversation. At least for me, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I really enjoy the channel. Like, I sincerely mean that. I really enjoy the channel.
Thanks.
You guys are doing great stuff, and I beg everybody, please just go over and watch. You're going to enjoy it. If you, I know my people, so you like. I know what you like. You'll enjoy the show. You'll enjoy the channel. Is there anything? Where are you guys heading off to next?
Well, we're in Texas right now. We're going to be here for another couple weeks, and then we actually have to head back to Oregon to start doing Bigfoot shows that start in February. So we're going to be we're doing 4 shows in February and March, up and down the I-5 corridor, you know, in Oregon, and then we're going up to Forks, Washington, to do the show up there. And then Medellin Falls, Washington was over by Spokane, and then we're doing a show in Roseburg, Oregon after that, and then we're headed to Maine in August. We're gonna
wow.
You are?
Yes, I are.
You are.
Okay, so when you come this way, please let me know. I will. If it's possible, I would love to hook up with you guys for a day or two. If it's cool with you guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, we just last weekend we just went out for a day with it was us, Greg Gulheater, Chester Moore, and Lyle Blackburn. We went out and spent a day with.
Nice. And, it's got to be so much fun, man. Like, it's just got to be so fun to hook up with so many cool, like, other Bigfooters. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a fan of this stuff, right, which you are, I know, like, you have to be to do this. I know, like, for me, it doesn't matter how long I've been in the community and how many people I meet. Like, when I meet somebody, another Bigfooter who's doing cool stuff, like, I get excited.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was really exciting to be able to hang out with, you know, well, especially like Lyle. I mean, we were in Falk, Arkansas with him, you know, and that's his backyard and that's his thing. And he was able to, you know, just to tell me things you never even heard of about the Falk monster, you know.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I get it. Trust me. It's funny because, like, one of my buddies, who I consider a good buddy now, is Alex Petikoff, and Alex, you know, Small Town Monsters. Alex has been doing this for a long time. It's hard to believe that he's only 30 years old, right? He's so he's just an old soul, and he's so accomplished in this. He's very, very smart. Like, what a thrill to go out with that guy. Who, I mean, it's a thrill. He literally has a photographic memory. If you come here and you were to meet up with us, you will never, ever get more info and data about Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts sightings than you'll get from that guy. I mean, he is a catalog of
that's awesome.
It's just amazing. So, like, I can imagine meeting Lyle down there, who that's his hometown. He knows it all, right?
Yeah.
Just gotta be thrilling, man.
Yeah, we're actually going to go out again next weekend with, or the weekend after next. I don't know if you've probably watched the Boggy Creek, right?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We're going to go out with Keith Crabtree, one of the Crabtree boys from. But if you're familiar with the movie, you know who the Crabtrees are.
Right.
But Keith Crabtree was actually in the movie. The Legend of Boggy Creek. He was the guy that was in the Bigfoot costume when they filmed it.
Gotcha. Yes.
Yeah. So
somebody, I think I was supposed to talk with Keith at one point years ago, and then that fell through.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so we're actually going to meet up with him in a couple of weeks and go hang out. So that'll be a lot of fun.
That's so awesome. All right. Well, my computer's about to die, and I don't want it to die on us. So let's
okay. All right.
Let's
Thanks.
end this thing. Listen, thank you so much again for coming on. Hang out for 2 minutes before when we're done here. Just 2 minutes, and then I'll let you go, if you don't mind, Scott. Guys, I will be going out Friday. Like I said, me, Alex, Brian are going up to October Mountain. We're going back to do a little day thing and then stay the night and do some investigating overnight with the thermals, the night visions, with the drones, with all that stuff. So please stay tuned. I will be going live at least a couple times while we're up there if I can catch a signal. We did last time. We were lucky enough to catch one for a little while. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll be back next week on Tuesday again. Deuster, thank you so much. Scott, thank you so much. Guys, have a wonderful night. Until next time, take care.